Hi, thank you so much for joining me today. And today, once again, I am documenting photos from a trip to New York, but this was just Ross and myself back in 1999, and it was our trip to Liberty Island and Ellis Island. These photos are both 5x7 and they are camera reel photos, so I don't have digital copies, they're just in our stash of photos, but I'm determined to get more of these photos into our albums. I always focus on the years 2007 onwards when the kids were born, but I think it's important to look back at the other things that we did before they were born, because we had quite a few trips before they were born. So I'm just pulling in my Lindy's Magicals to create a background for this page, and I wanted to go in with this blue, this tealy blue, because I thought it would go nicely with the colours of Lady Liberty. So I started off using the packaging technique, and then I brought in some more of the powder to create some darker pools, and I'm just splattering and adding that slowly around the page. Once again, I'm going to be using Vicki Boutin's Where To Next collection. It just seemed the obvious choice for a travel layout, so that's what I'm doing. And when I leave this to dry shortly, I do trim down my photos slightly because they're both 5x7, so they are huge photos, and I didn't need them to be that big. There was plenty of white space on them, so you'll see in a bit I do trim them down and then mat them onto white card and then onto black. So leaving that to dry, and here are those photos. As you can see, I've just trimmed down the left and right hand side, and these are two pictures of the statue, one of the back of her and one of the side of her, showing her flame torch. And now I'm coming in with my large Jane alphabet stamps from Ellie's studio. I use the solid and the outline for this, and I'm just going to write down the right hand side of the page, which is the top as you see it. I'm just going to write down Lady Liberty. So I use fossilised amber distress ink because that brings out the gold of her flame and crown, and I'm just laying it out here to see how it works. So I won't make you painfully watch all of this. It's just to give you an idea how I do it. So I do the word lady first, and I'm using my T-square ruler just to make sure that it does go down straight. I've made sure that the stamps go down straight on my block. This is a Tim Holtz, I think it's Stampers Anonymous block, and they're great because they've got that grid on there, so you can make sure that your letters are correctly laid down. So here I am putting Liberty down now. So really happy with how that's turned out. I'm not going to bother doing the outline just yet. I want to start building the layout. So if you can see, while I was waiting for that paint to dry, which took quite a long time, I've pulled out some bits and pieces that I thought might be useful. So I've got these two lovely tags that are going at the top. This is a chipboard piece, that label piece that's going down the left-hand side. And that phrase that says the sights and sounds is actually from the paper pack. So it's very thin, but it works nicely as a layer on top of that label. This write it down piece is going to be my journaling block, and that's cut from one of the papers. I think it's from the 12x12 paper. It could have been from the 6x8 pad, but I think it's a 12x12 paper that's been cut down. So I'm just desperately trying to work out exactly how to lay all this out, but that write it down does end up at the bottom in a minute. You'll see I move it. But I'm just playing around, trying to work out with the shape. When you've got such big photos, they do take up most of the layout. So it's trying not to add too much, but making sure that you've got all the bits in that you want to add in. So I definitely wanted to add some tickets at the bottom. We took the subway from our hotel straight down to the bottom of Manhattan so that we could go over to Liberty Island. And I wanted a journaling spot so I could add what had happened on that day. So just fussing and faffing. That yellow piece is also a chipboard circle from the chipboard pack, and I've got, you can see to the left hand side, a black heart that I'm going to add on as well. I love that word phrase that says today, so I'm determined to get that on, but it doesn't stay at the top there in the end. So I'm just trying to work out how I'm going to do this because I've got chipboard on chipboard, so I'm going to have to bring in some foam pads to get everything layered up. But in the meantime, I pull out our printables from Hey Little Magpie. These are designed to match this collection, the Where To Next collection from Vicki Boutin, and I'm just cutting out a couple of the labels. I cut out this square one, and then I do cut out a circular one as well. So using a 1 1/4 inch circle punch and just adding that down there. And then bringing in some other little bits and pieces. This is a JD 3D print camera that was in the 12 Days of Christmas Advent box. And I'm just toying with the idea of using this pink piece, but I don't in the end because I didn't really want to bring another colour in to the layout. So that'll sit there for a while I decide what to do. So here I am with my foam pads. As I say, I'm having to layer things up so that everything sits neatly and straight on the layout. And this chipboard label, I have pulled some of the backing off to make it slightly thinner, and then I decide that I'm going to cut it in half because there's no point in having half of it tucked underneath the photo, so I can save half for another day. So just sliding that underneath that chipboard circle, and then making sure that I'm happy with the positioning so that the photo just tucks underneath that chipboard circle heart. So just adding a couple of foam pads just to raise it up ever so slightly so that it sits neatly on top of that chipboard, and then bringing that word phrase back in again. And I know that because the end is overlapping the end of that chipboard label, I do need to bring in some foam pads, so I bring one in, but it's too big. So I just have to peel back half of it and cut that off. So I'll add some glue and get that stuck down. And these papery pieces, you have to be careful not to add too much wet glue because they're very thin and they would wrinkle if you add too much. So just be a bit careful if you're using those. So same again, foam pads on this photo because I want it to overlap the other one. And then bringing in those tags again. So I'm just going to glue that journaling piece down. I'm still faffing with that today word, trying to decide where it's going to go. And sometimes it's a good idea just to leave it. If you're not quite sure, just focus on something else and then come back to it because it does all come together eventually. So just adding a tiny bit of glue behind these tickets and getting those glued down, and it's really coming together now. Like I say, I don't want to add too much because the photos take an awful lot of space on this layout, so I don't need too many embellishments cluttering it up. So just checking I'm happy with the positioning of these tags, and then I'll glue them down. This one I can't get tucked down quite as far as I'd like to because of that foam pad, so just trim off the end. And then just adding a daub of glue behind that yellow heart because I'd stuck it down with the foam pads, but I hadn't actually stuck it down to the chipboard piece. So. And then the black heart. Now this needs a double layer of foam pads because it's chipboard on chipboard on chipboard at this point. So it's adding quite a lot of height to the layout. And then that lovely little JD 3D print camera just nestles underneath at the bottom there. And of course the circle label from the R printables. So that's that cluster finish now, and it looks really nice. So I'm going to add my journaling, and my journaling just reads, we took the subway down to go over to see the statue, then walked back up to our hotel buying a new camera on the way. It was so cold. So our camera at Liberty Island stopped working halfway through. We thought it had just packed up because it was a slightly older camera. It was a bit frustrating. So we bought a new one, and then when we got to our hotel, as our camera thawed out, it actually started working, and I think it just got too cold for it. So that was the reason it had stopped working. But anyway, it was nice to have a treat of a new camera. So I'm just going through the sticker book now and adding a few other bits. I find this little black geotag and that yellow heart. Now I do move that yellow heart shortly. This is just a scrap of paper that I had in the paper scraps, and I think that will look nice as a layer next to that write it down piece. So just roughing up the edges and sticking that on top of the label. And then this is where I decide to add that today. And I add it on top of that label in such a way that you can barely see that the label's there, but I know it's there. Sometimes that just happens when you're layering. You do have to forfeit certain bits. So I wanted a label at the top here to add my date on that tab. And then I find this word phrase that says city tour, and I think that's going to work really nicely up there. So just nestle that into that corner. And you saw I put that bulldog clip there as well. And then this is another one that says take it all in. And we certainly did that this week. So writing the date, 12th of March 1999. Cannot believe that was nearly 25 years ago now. It's crazy. And then I find this little black and gold map. So I'm going to pull up that yellow heart and add that there, and then add the heart underneath the word today. And that just brings that yellow across the page. So very pleased with how that turned out. And then I spot that other hot dog on there from the layout I did the other day, and I thought, oh, could have used that as well, but never mind. So this is where I come in with the outline stamp from Ellie's Studio, and I'm just going to use my black archive link to add an outline to all of those letters. And I just do them one at a time. It doesn't take very long at all, so I won't make you watch it all, but that's it done. So I wanted to bring in this chipboard star at the bottom. The title was slightly off centre, so I felt it needed something at the bottom here, so I'm just adding this yellow chipboard star. And then some twine for in my tags. And I'm just going to loop this through the right hand side, through the second tag, through the bulldog clip, and then just leave it to trail down the left hand side of the layout. Just getting it all threaded through. It's a little bit fiddly. There we go. Just going to tuck it underneath that label just to keep it in place. And that's it. Thank you so much for joining me. I really hope you've enjoyed this. Bit of a different one from me today. And I shall see you again very soon. Thanks again. Bye.